Thank you so much, Jeffrey Camden, for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you. For those of you who have missed it, we are at the Tri-State Conference 2013, hosted in New Jersey this year. And the idea is access and opportunity. And it was a treat to have you join us for this brief interview after your keynote,
Sure.
Which is amazing. We just want to talk about those ideas a little bit further.
Sure.
You know, first and foremost, I remember seeing on documentary that you were featured in, Waiting for Superman, in your orientation with parents and family members, you made a promise that if you partner with the families and the communities, that you promise that will make it to college.
Yep.
Why is it important for you to make such a claim that really goes into other variables that are outside of your control? Why is making that statement to those family members really important for you to make?
Well, I think it's really clear to our team that we take this promise seriously. What we say to parents, you stick with us. We can help you figure out how to get over whatever hurdles you're going to run into. And so our parents have lots of challenges that they face, and our kids do also. But if you don't give up, we're going to get these kids in college, and we're going to get them through college. We are sort of unafraid to make that statement. I've been in the business long enough to know that a huge number of our young people are totally capable of going to college. Doesn't matter whether they've got special ed issues or other barriers that come into their life. If the adults are good enough, then they have to prepare these kids to go to college. The other thing it does is it makes it clear and unambiguous for my staff and for my board and for my community what we're holding ourselves accountable for. And I think this is about being held accountable, that if you want to answer part of the problem, you say, I'll help your kids get through high school. Well, that's part of the problem, but that's not what success looks like. We think success looks like kids with college degrees. And so let's just be clear and say that's what we're going to do.
Okay. Opportunity programs have been around for a while, over 40 years.
Yep.
We've had this issue of access and opportunity for many years. In some areas it got better, some areas not so much. Why is it, and the irony is these are education settings, why is it so hard for us to learn from our past failures and even some of our successes, but more so, what's keeping us from learning from our failures and fixing a lot of these things that have been happening for a while?
Yeah, for educators, for some reason, really believe they have to solve every problem themselves. We don't hire directors and superintendents to go out and say, I'm going to figure out what somebody else did and do that. We hire people who say, I've got an idea. I can do what other folks haven't done. And so it's really sort of removed the impetus towards collaboration between knowledge sharing. There are people and places that are solving the toughest problems in this country. And we as educators need to go and see those people. One of the challenges, educators believe the answers lie at the university. So they're always ready saying, I need to go get a higher degree. That is not where the answer is. The answer is in some school in Newark or in some community in Cincinnati. They're with the same exact kids that you have. They're actually getting success, and we need to go to those places and take them as seriously as we would if we're doing a master's thesis or a PhD thesis where we're putting all of our time and intellectual capital into understanding some concepts. I think we've got this thing twisted. The real experts are doing it in real life right now. Those are the people we should be learning from, and educators simply have not done that.
With that point of looking at communities, there's a lot of nonprofits and community-based organizations, especially in Harlem. And what is the issue that keeps from building those connections to see those success models in action? We have a lot of the same populations we're serving, same mission.
Yep.
What's the disconnect?
Well, the business model for most not-for-profits is not based on collaboration, it's based on uniqueness. So I go out and tell everybody else how unique I am and how different I am from everybody else, and that makes me stand out and allows me to get funding where other people have not. Nobody feels like it's a good business model to say the reason I'm successful is because these other three not-for-profits that I'm working with are successful, and people won't fund you to do that. So we've got a business model that doesn't make a lot of sense. once we really incentivize cooperation, once we figure out how everybody wins, and by the way, the fallacy is that this is different in the not-for-profit sector than in the for-profit sector. If two for-profit businesses want to collaborate and work together, they have a whole team of lawyers thinking about their brands, thinking about who gets credit, how does this happen, what happens if you have debt and I don't have debt. In not-for-profits, we don't have the same kind of business strategy where we have folk who can help us think through these partnerships so it's a win-win for everybody. So I think we've got to build these capacities inside the field.
Speaking of strategies, you guys pride yourself in the Harlem Children's Zone with being accountable and using data-driven results to hold you accountable. Is that instrumental to your success, or can programs with similar missions get by without? Is that the bottom line issue? Is strategy and data?
The reason strategy and data are so important is that the data is the only way that you find out what you're not doing well. Right? And a lot of times, things you think you're doing well, when you look at the data, you find out you're not doing well at all. And so we have put a lot of emphasis on the sort of, high stakes test. But they tend to happen late in the school year. You don't get the results back in time to do anything different. We want data today that tells us whether or not a child has mastered a subject area or not. We can't wait 4 months or to the end of the year. And so I think that when you get the data, you begin to see where you're really struggling and where you're being really successful. I think the more we know about what we're doing well and what we're really struggling about, the more likely it is we'll be able to improve the areas that we're failing at and even strengthen more the areas that we're being successful. So the idea of having a strategy and having data to me is absolutely essential. Mostly what we've done is wait for end of the year data, which simply certifies a kid has been successful or failed without thinking about the interim data that gives us an opportunity to help those kids master what they need to master while there's still time for them to have a successful school year.
As we know, as you mentioned, Latinos and other populations are becoming the majority. Last question, what's your comments or opinions on the relationship that high schools have with college, especially college programs of opportunity? Or what are we doing that we shouldn't be doing anymore, or what can we do to kind of enhance that relationship and be more effective in getting them college ready?
Well, part of the challenge we have is that we have totally undervalued how important it is to have professionals at the high school level who understand the college scene, both locally and regionally and nationally. A lot of times we send kids to schools that it's just not appropriate for them to go to. It's not the right culture, it's not the right academic background, it's not the right support for that kid. Part of every college advisor's job at the high school level is to really understand, you know what, I've got a C+ student who has a lot of potential and will do terrific in this school, but will absolutely struggle in this school. Where I may have a B- student who would look great, like they would do well here, but actually notice the wrong school for them. One of the things is we don't even have college advisors in lots of high schools, much less people who really have the sophistication to do this well. So you end up with this sort of factory-like assembly line approach. Fill out all the applications and let's see what happens. And it's not much thought going into it. I think as the country is starting to value college and college completion, we've got to go back to reinventing. This is back to the future. We've got to reinvent what we had, which was real guidance, real people who knew young people and knew the colleges so that they could make really appropriate matches. And I think that would help an awful lot when it comes to college retention.
And I said our last question. One more quick question.
Sure.
Do you see yourself tackling higher ed sometime in your future?
Well, you know,
you were looking like that this is your legacy, and you're going to continue finishing.
I am speaking out more and more around the affordability of college, and the fact that colleges are not held responsible, right? So you take my profession, teacher colleges. So you have teacher colleges, and no one's ever looked at whether or not those students who graduate actually are decent teachers. Now, how could you run a profession and have no data, right? So we need to make sure that these colleges are actually providing young people with the skills necessary for them to be successful. These places are costing kids a fortune. So you're spending a lot of money, and then you're unprepared to enter into your chosen profession or you're mediocre at it. And so I think that they're going to have to be held into account. But it will not be the major thrust of what I'll be doing. I'm going to leave that to younger people like yourself to take on that issue of colleges and universities.
Very well then. Thank you so much for joining us. It's a pleasure. And
Absolutely.
hopefully this won't be the last time.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Sure.